My name is Anya McGlynn.
And I'm Liz Bryce. Welcome to a special bonus episode of Digital Comfort Zone, a super not scary technology podcast for the people powering nonprofits in Canada. For most of our careers, we've been deep in the weeds of charities and technology, but most interested in the people who use it. I'm SVP Community and Strategic Initiatives at Canada Helps, Canada's largest online donation and fundraising platform, and a charity ourselves.
And I run a small consultancy focused on the digital needs of small charities.
Today, we're answering your questions. From surveys, forums, and webinars, we've collected a range of questions all about being a digitally enabled charity.
We know that people working in the nonprofit sector are extremely busy and often short on tools and resources to reach their full potential. So our goal with this episode is really to provide enough clarity and guidance so that you can feel comfortable and even maybe excited about getting started.
Speaking of excited, we're joined by my colleague, Naomi Bargiel, who will be asking us your questions. Welcome, Naomi.
Hi, Liz and Anya. Thanks so much for the warm welcome.
Thank you so much for being here and for holding our feet to the fire and giving us some tough questions to have to consider.
Yes, we're ready to go. Give us all the hard questions.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here and to give you those hard questions. The first few questions are pretty common ones we hear in the sector. Starting us off is, what does it really mean to be a digitally enabled organization, and why should it be a priority for us?
So this is a really important question about what's in it for me, essentially, as an organization. Oftentimes we get caught up in trends and ideas that maybe are not relevant to us. But in the case of using technology really well, this is not a trend. It's not something that's going away. It's really something that's going to be really important to our ability to deliver on our mission and to deliver a really good staff experience as well. So digitally enabled simply means that you're leveraging all of the possibilities of cloud computing in the way that work for you, for your mission, for your stakeholders, for your staff, and for your priorities. So there's no real template. What to focus on really depends on what are the specifics of those things for your organization. And when you start to use technology well and be enabled by technology, that means that your teams can do their best work, even if you're completely remote. Even if your mission is really complex and your programs are really complex and your measurement and evaluation framework is really complex, and even when you're dealing with multiple partnerships and collaborations, right? In fact, digital enablement can make those complicated aspects a lot easier. And when you start to focus on using technology well, it means that everybody who interacts with your organization, be they your staff, your donors, your volunteers, participants, it means that you're meeting them with the information and the experiences in the moments where it's most meaningful to them.
And I think it's such an interesting question that we even still get this, like, why is it going to help me? And I think sometimes it might just be the language. Like, if you think the rest of your life and the way that you use technology in the rest of your life, for most of us, there's not really a question that we're going to use technology and that is going to benefit us from smartphones or remote controls or our washing machines. There are lots of ways that we use it in our lives that we don't even think about. And so for a lot of these things, when we're thinking about applying it to our workplace, it might even be taking, I don't know, those big scary words out of it and just thinking about what are the tools that I'm going to use that are going to help me do my job better.
Yeah, exactly. Like taking the jargon off the table makes it much more realizable, I would say. Yeah.
Anya, you mentioned how busy people are in the sector. So I think this applies to a lot of people. The question is, I know I need to make time for digital transformation, but where should I start? What's one small practical step I can take tomorrow? And this question has a follow-up as well, which is, when can I expect to start seeing results?
So in some ways, I want to kind of challenge the premise of the question around digital transformation. I think as much as I use it quite often, and we use it in our literature and the conversation about the Charity Growth Academy, transformation implies that like there's a beginning point, a middle point, and an end point, right? Like you start off as a caterpillar, you end up as a beautiful butterfly, right? And along the way, there's been this effort and you've been transformed. But in fact, like in our last question, we talked about digital enablement. And I think that's almost a better way to think about it, right? Is that you're going to take steps towards digital enablement. And those steps are going to continue to build on each other as you get deeper and more sophisticated in your use of technology. The transformation doesn't kind of really end, right? It's an ongoing effort, right? And in saying that, if you're still thinking about, well, where can I have the most impact by making one or two changes or steps today to like help us become more enabled? I think it really depends on what you're trying to achieve and who you're trying to bring along on that journey and that effort, right? It's one thing to be a 1-person or 2-person shop and be like, okay, like let's lean into technology. It's another thing to be, a 20-person organization, find yourself being an accidental techie and needing to bring leadership along, to invest the time and effort into technology. So in that case, when you're dealing with leaders, sometimes it's about getting them to think about digital when they're doing their strategic planning so that we've got time and space in our strategic plan to focus on it. Sometimes we have one very sticky or slow process. Maybe it's we deal with a lot of, contracts and payments back and forth. And that's an effortful, slow process that requires a lot of manual data entry and there's fragmented information. So maybe it's just focusing on how can we make that process more streamlined and tighter, and then show everybody as a sort of proof of concept. Look, we took something that used to take 70 hours and we turned it into something that takes 10 hours, right? Other times it's just about learning a bit more, right? So, I've heard about integrations, I've heard about automations, but don't really know what those are. Let me take some time to deepen my knowledge and my understanding. Maybe it's just we use Microsoft 365, we use Google Workspace, but I know we're only scratching the surface. Maybe it's what can I learn a bit more about those platforms? What kind of courses can I take, right? So it could be even starting a technology influencer group at your organization, right? So taking folks who have curiosity and are like self-starters around tech and like putting them together and be like, hey, like, what can you learn from each other? And what can we take from what we learn from each other and bring back to the rest of our teams? What can we gather from how our teams are working and bring back to this group to try and problem solve and help people move forward? So there's so many different ways that you can get started. And there is no right or wrong way, to be honest. It's just about getting started. That's the most important thing.
All right. Our next question is, it has been a challenge getting everyone on board to invest time and resources into becoming more digitally enabled. How can I get buy-in from leadership to start making progress? And to what extent is digital transformation about technology? And to what extent is it about people?
This is my favorite question. And like Liz can confirm, it's the whole raison d'etre of this podcast, right? Like,
it's the people.
It's the people. It's all the people. It's the people. It's the people, right? So it's always about the people. And this is true with any kind of learning or skill building effort, right? Like imagine you decided that you wanted to learn how to play piano, right? Like the AI can't do it for you. Like you have to learn how to play the piano. Imagine that you signed up for a 10K. There's no shortcut. You have to do the running, right? And it's the same, or, if you're trying to learn carpentry, like you have to pick up the hammer and like learn how to, measure twice and cut once and all of that. It's the same thing with learning how to use digital tools well. They are as tactical and as concrete, believe it or not, even though they live in this amorphous sort of cloud place, but they are as tactical and concrete as a piano. And the amount of time that you spend with the technology, just like with the piano, the better you will get at it, right? So I think that what, leaders sometimes miss in this process is, am I creating the right time and space for my teams to learn these new ways of working that we've invested in, to absorb training? Are we creating good onboarding material for when people join our organization and need to use our tools? So all of the stuff around the configuration of technology is sometimes, in fact, maybe even more important than configuring the tools themselves. And so sometimes even starting with that conversation with leaders can be helpful to get them on board, right? Because they might be thinking, oh, well, this is a website build, it's a database build, blah, blah, blah. They're like, no. This is a whole investment in our people, in how we work, and what's possible if we adopt a learning mindset and a sense of curiosity about how might we deliver our mission by using technology better, right? I think that can be a good starting point.
And that said, I mean, the tools obviously matter. Choosing a tool that actually meets your needs matters, just doesn't matter as much if nobody uses it. But one of the other things that we like to talk about is actually talking about what your needs are and talking to the people who are going to be using it. And that's going to help with buy-in if their needs are being met. And then when you go looking for a tool, you're looking for a tool based on your needs, not just a nice sales pitch. And so one of the things you can do is check out some of our resources. So we have some resources called Art of the Possible, and they're really just stories about, we wanted to change this process. We used a digital tool to get there, and how did it help us? And so it's a way of just seeing the possibilities of what these things could do and why you're going to put in all this effort of bringing people along. And then also check out episode 2 of this podcast, which was with Philip Haid of Public Inc. We talked about persuasion and what you need to think about when trying to convince somebody of making a change.
I would just, kind of add to that too, even though I work in technology, I'm not necessarily the person who's first in line to adopt whatever new great thing has happened, right? Like, I still have to, when I see new emerging technologies, I still have to think, like, I still have to be convinced that there's something in it for me, right? And so that's true across the board, right? I remember when the first generation iPhones came out, and a friend of mine who was very sort of techie, tech forward, worked in the space, he had this iPhone, and I was like, "What? I don't need this." Like, I was like, "I've got my little pink Motorola Razor, and it's great, and I can text on it, and like I can, wait 10 minutes for it to download an email. Like, I'm good. This is great. Like, I don't need anything else." And then we went on a trip together, on a road trip, and I had my printed out MapQuest instructions turn by turn. I was like, okay, this is great technology. Woohoo. And he in the backseat goes, I could just like put in the destination into my iPhone and it would give us, it's like a GPS. It'll give us turn by turn cues. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? So he like put it in, and then I was like, oh, okay. I get it. I see what's possible here. Right. And so it's like, not until you can make a case for people that like, this has a specific application for you. This is going to do X, Y, or Z for you. Otherwise, like, we're bombarded by so many promises of things that are going to make our lives easier. Like, why should I believe this? Why should I believe you? So making that case very concrete and very bringing it home is super, super compelling.
We know that a lot of organizations in the sector are strapped for funds and resources. So our next question is digital transformation expensive? How do I reach my organization's digital goals without breaking the bank?
Yeah, I love this question too. Again, it's kind of like, is the transformation expensive? Or are the tools expensive? Or are the skills that people need to use the tools well expensive? Or is the change of habits that are going to happen in the organization expensive, right? So expensive is a very sort of relative term depending on what we're talking about. The technology itself does not have to be, right? Like Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, both donated products for nonprofits. Salesforce, free for up to 10 licenses. All these other cloud tools, between sort of 25, 35, 40% off for nonprofits. Canva is free for nonprofits. Like TechSoup has a whole catalog of incredibly powerful technologies that are accessible for pennies on the dollar. So it's not about the cost of the tech stack. That's not what's expensive. What costs is the effort to configure, adopt, and maintain those technologies over time. Right? So configuring, making sure that we understand, we have clarity around our mission, we have clarity around the people who are going to be using the technology, And with those two pieces together, so mission clarity and design priorities, then we can configure the tools that work well for us. So that effort takes time. What happens when we start delivering new programming, or we update our theory of change, or we have a new measurement and evaluation strategy, or we get a new grant? Do some of our technologies then have to change to collect different information and store different information and report on different information? So these like efforts to address configuration and bring it up to date all the time. Are people trained and capable of using these technologies? Do we document them well? Do people have the time to learn new skills? Are we going to actually have to like turn over our staff a little bit to really take advantage of all the tech that we're using? Are we going to have to address our talent strategy if we're really going to lean into this? So expensive in terms of like hard costs going into tool subscription, not necessarily. And those other pieces don't have to be expensive either. You just have to be thoughtful about them, right? So it's the thinking at the outset that is costly, so to speak, but it will pay off over time.
But also, like, what else is expensive is wasting your time, right? So if you've got a team of people doing things that you don't need to pay a person to do, like moving data between spreadsheets or repeating the same thing and having like all these things cost you money. We just sometimes forget to think about how those cost us money, and missed opportunities cost you money too. And I'm not trying to say this is not hard, but if you could be raising more money, or you could be saving money in one area so that your staff who, came in as fundraisers but suddenly become tech support for the whole organization because nobody else can do it, then they're not out there raising money. And I've talked to lots of organizations where people just get saddled with extra work that they're doing, or they're doing a bunch of manual tasks. And if they were working better, which is a process, then they could be focusing on, the impact of their programs, or raising more funds, or building partnerships. And that's a really important lens for us to think about. And it's also a really important thing for us to think about when we're talking to our funders. And I know that there aren't huge number of funders in Canada who are like, I want to fund your capacity or your infrastructure. But some of that is because we're not talking to them about it. And so thinking about how we build those conversations in with people we have relationships with. And Anya, I think you've often talked about, when you're putting together a funding proposal, that you're not calling it out as a technology line. You're saying this is part of program delivery, is the tools needed to deliver this program.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's always line items and grants about measurement and evaluation, right? Well, you tell me in 2025, how are you planning to conduct your surveys? How are you planning to monitor, campaign performance by looking at who landed and who downloaded and who interacted, right? Like, you're going to use technology to do so. So this is not overhead or admin costs. This is absolutely program delivery cost. I would also, just kind of point to a client of mine that I had, and they had some staff turnover, in particular, 2 folks who decided to leave because they had come into the organization with an expectation of what their role was. And because that organization's information management systems were not good, and they hadn't really automated or integrated or thought about doing things efficiently, both of those people ended up being pulled into all of this information management administrative BS, for lack of a better word. And it got to the point that they were so pulled away from their profile of like mission related work that they were really excited about doing, that they left the organization, right? So that turnover cost was like, the organization had to absorb that. The hit to the staff, staff felt really bad that these folks had left. It kind of had this kind of ripple effect, and people going, yeah, no, things don't work really well for us. And in fact, once we demonstrated how we could, make some of the tasks that were pulling those folks away from their work automated and integrated and more seamless, it was like, oh, actually, we don't need to, because at first the organization was like, oh, we need to backfill their roles because we need somebody to do X, Y, and Z and the other thing. And I was like, actually, we can automate all of that. So you don't need people to do those things. But if you still need people to do the mission related work, well, now you can hire them with confidence that that's what they're going to be spending their time on, right? So to Liz's point, like, there is a cost in expecting people to do tasks that are not, what they want to be doing, nor are they driving your deliverables forward.
Okay, we're going to change it up a bit, and I have some rapid fire questions for you. Digital transformation can feel particularly out of reach for small nonprofits that have a lot on their plates, but I'm sure Liz and Anya, you can agree that that doesn't have to be the case. So, how can small nonprofits make the most of limited staff and resources when implementing digital tools or strategies?
Oh, okay. My favorite answer to this question is a saying, and it goes, if you can't afford to do it right, what makes you think you can afford to do it twice? Okay. If you have limited staff resources implementing digital tools and strategies and you don't have the skill, hire somebody. Hire somebody to give you a roadmap, get into the weeds, decide what you can take on yourselves, and decide what you're going to outsource.
I think a lot of organizations have a version of this question on their mind, but this particular one is interesting. They say, my organization has a website and Facebook page. Does that mean we're digitally enabled? If not, what more do we need?
In 2008, it would have been a resounding yes, but it is 2025. So the answer is definitely no. The Facebook page and the website are like the front door to your organization. And if the front door is painted red and it's got little hanging baskets and it looks really inviting and it's wonderful, and people will be really encouraged to walk through. Digital enablement happens after you walk through the door. What happens to the stakeholder in terms of their experience and their information once they walk through your front door? Do they land in the room where they need to land? Are they invited to sit down? Are they given a nice drink? Can they contribute their information meaningfully in a way that it's heard? Or do they walk in the door and fall through a giant hole in the living room right down to the basement, never to be seen again? Right? Digital enablement happens past the front door, right?
And saves lives, apparently.
And does save lives. That's right. No falling through holes. Much safer.
Getting specific, what are some tools that any nonprofit, no matter the size, should have in place in 2025?
Oof. Okay. Compelling question. Difficult to answer. But I will sort of say there's like tier A, B, and maybe even C in terms of like priorities. I would prioritize a core operating tool. So a core operating tool is like Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace. If you're not on either one of those, turn off this podcast. Bye. Hope you had a good time. Go acquire a product license from TechSoup. It's free. That would be number one. Also in tier A, I would add a WYSIWYG website editor. So like a what you see is what you get website editor, Squarespace, Weebly. I'm sorry, if you listen to a podcast or you have watched a YouTube video, you've seen an advertisement for these types of platforms. They make it really easy to build a website and take control over what you want on your site and how to edit it. Third in there would be some kind of comprehensive form tool, a JotForm, FormStack, Form Assembly. There's so many different ones, but they allow you to automate a whole bunch of different information intake processes, from surveys to course registrations for your paid to review processes, applications, you name it. Number 4 in tier A would be a cloud bookkeeping tool. QuickBooks Online, Xero, again, deep discounts for nonprofits. And then the 5th one rounding out that tier A would be an online donation tool. Shout out, obviously, to Canada Helps. That's the most obvious and easiest way to get yourself set up to take online donations. And there are others out there as well. Tier B, I would say, sort of like once you've got those first 5 sorted out, an email marketing tool, whether it's MailChimp or Constant Contact or Acuity. There's, again, so many. A donor management system, so some place to keep track of who donated what and when. And this could be a spreadsheet. Doesn't have to be a sophisticated tool. It could be a really well-designed spreadsheet. A well-designed spreadsheet. That is the important part. Okay, put some thought into designing it. Ask AI how to design a good donor management spreadsheet. I swear to God, ChatGPT will spit you out some kind of template that you can download and use like in 5 minutes. Which else? A CRM, a database, like if you're getting into program data that you need to capture and registrations and volunteers and all that kind of stuff. And then rounding up that tier B would be an integration as a service technology. That sounds very scary and complicated. Google it. It's really not. It's just a tool that allows information to move between your systems without you having to export and import stuff.
But most importantly, learn how to use them. I guarantee you that there are features within whatever tool you've used that you don't know how to use. You don't have to learn it all at once, but if you're like, I use Google Workspace, figure out what tools Google Workspace offers, and then start learning how to use them. Maybe designate somebody on your team to be like, hey, you're the person who's going to go explore this and bring it back to us and think about how it fits with our jobs. Because there's so much that's already available for you that you don't need to go out and find a new tool for.
Correct. It's like, okay, I love cooking videos, and one niche area of cooking videos that I like are what people can do with rice cookers. Like, people can do so much with rice cookers. Like, I swear to God, you all have rice cookers and you're just using them to cook rice, and you could be doing so much more with them. So to Liz's point, like, look at what you already have, and like, there's probably a whole bunch of stuff you can do with it that you don't even know. Make use of your rice cookers.
I don't have a rice cooker, but now I want to check them out.
You could be cooking salmon and vegetables and rice all in one pot.
And like, there's like desserts you can do. You can do oatmeal. I swear to God, there's no limit.
Sounds like the new air fryer. Last rapid fire question, not our last question, but last rapid fire question is, what are shadow systems and why are they a problem?
So shadow system is any tool or technology that some wonderfully curious, eager staff member has decided to sign up for and has started using as a matter of doing work for your organization. So maybe you're a Microsoft 365 shop and they're like, well, actually, I just really like how Google Drive works. And so they signed up for some like rogue Google Drive account and have been storing documents in there. It's a shadow system.
Yeah, the
right?
personal email maybe.
And maybe using their personal email. Honestly, there's a conversation to be had about ChatGPT and how many people are using their personal GPT accounts to throw massive amounts of organizational information into it. Like, that's a shadow system that we really need to start talking about. Bit of a risk. So there are risks. They represent a risk to information security. That person leaves. They've put all this key information into this, shadow Google Drive account. How are you going to find it? But the shadow side of shadow systems is that they can actually alert you to how people want to work. When people start signing up for tools and technologies that are not a part of your official stack, it's probably because there's something about them that is helping them do their job better. So that's an opportunity to say, hey, maybe we already have something in our ecosystem and we just didn't tell you about it, but you can use that instead. Or, hey, I really like your approach to this, and the way that you've decided to use this tool really would solve a problem for us. So let's maybe incorporate it into our tech stack. So they're both a risk and an opportunity.
Our last question is, I've taken the assessment and the action plan I received is giant. How am I supposed to use this much information?
Yeah, fair enough. And, thank you for the question and, any feedback we receive. So the thing to keep in mind about the action plan is it's based on your organization. It generates a plan based on what you've told us about where you're at right now and what opportunities there are. So if you were to say, I'm amazing at all these things, you'd get a very short action plan, but you also wouldn't be here, and that's okay. And so how to deal with it? Because there's that terrible expression about, I don't even know if I should say it. How do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. And it's such an icky expression. But in practicality, you're like, how do I take on a really big project? And it's one step at a time. So I guess what I would say is take a deep breath and start reviewing the plan when you're in the right headspace to do it. So if you find technology and big projects stressful in general, or you're just otherwise overwhelmed, like, don't go into it at a time when, I don't know, your kids are yelling in the background or your boss is putting a lot of pressure on you or you have 500 things to do. Go into it with an open mind and say, this is an opportunity for me to learn something new or try something new. And I would probably say read through the whole thing, although if that stresses you out, just pick one section. It's broken down into sections. And then if there are recommendations you're not interested in, hide them. And that's okay too. Right? We've given answers based on what you've told us, but maybe you don't want to do that one, and that's all right. And then I would say the action plan has a number of features. So one of them is sorting them. You can sort it by how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, and how complex it is. And maybe you just want to be like, I only want to look at free ones, or I only want to look at really easy things. And that is perfectly okay. And then just pick one thing, just one. Pick the one thing you want to focus on and click the little push pin button. It'll go to your main page And that's all you're going to look at. And when you got that, and whether this is in the same session, maybe this is in another session when you're feeling ready for that, think about, if I'm going to do this one thing, we've got a recommendation and a number of sub-actions. Be like, who needs to be involved? Who do I need to talk to about in the organization to put this in place? What is it going to take to do this? It might just be you and you're like, okay, I can just go make that change. But maybe you need to talk to your colleague and be like, hey, we're going to take on a new form. What needs to go into it? And make a bit of a plan around that. And then when you're all done, check it off and feel really good about checking it off. Celebrate however makes you feel best, but like acknowledge that you did a thing that maybe was hard for you. This is this personal, emotional, mental side of doing this work is I did this thing and I'm going to mark that I did this thing before I go on to all the other things I'm going to do. And then after that, like think about what worked, what didn't when you choose your next one. But know really that this is a process. So the goal of the action plan is to give you an overview of what we think could help you based on experience and based on what you told us. And some of those things are going to be short and some of them are going to be long. You're not going to finish this plan next month. You might not even finish it this year. So you might have to build in a budget. You might need to hire staff. You might need to get board support. So it's giving you a roadmap for the future. And some of your information might change and you retake it over time and update that action plan. But you're going to start somewhere. Check out episode 1 of this podcast about starting complex projects. Start somewhere and make progress and reflect on that progress as you go along. That was a long answer. Anya, anything to add?
No, I think you nailed it. It's with any big effort, it's just about starting one thing, right? Again, I'm going to go back to the piano example or the running a 10K example. You don't decide to run a 10K and the next day be like, I'm going to run a 10K today. You first check, are your shoes still good, or are they from 1997 and neon pink and like are Reebok pumps? Like, do we need new shoes? Like, we have to acknowledge that there's like a series of small pieces that you can take on before you can get to the whole. I remember when I was doing my PhD and I was feeling really overwhelmed, and my supervisor said to me, listen, just break it down into tasks that any idiot could do. He's like, any idiot could go to the library, pick out that book. Any idiot could look at the table of contents and figure out which chapter they want to read. Like, and that is my mantra now. When things get complicated, I'm like, just break it into tasks that any idiot can do. And yeah, it kind of helps you get over the idea that it's overwhelming or that you're not capable of it.
Was that supervisor the one we interviewed for our podcast?
Was it Nick? It was Nick. Yeah, that's a very Nick thing to say.
So what we're saying is go back and listen to other episodes of our podcast because we've got lots of wisdom from season 1.
Anya, I think you just changed my life with that and the rice cooker.
That's what we're here for. And with that, we think all of you are very smart people who can do this work. But those are all the questions that we have for now. So we really appreciate everyone who took the time to ask the questions. And we do hope that you feel motivated to start exploring digital enablement in your organization. And if you want to call it something else, please do. If there are other questions that you'd like us to answer, you can send us an email at hello@charitygrowthacademy.org. Check out the FAQs within the platform, and also check out all the free resources that are available to you within your account.
Thank you so much for listening to Digital Comfort Zone. The best way that you can get started is to check out Charity Growth Academy and start your assessment today, like right now. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a 5-star rating. This helps other people discover the show.
And thank you to our guest, Naomi, for presenting us with the questions, and to our podcast producers, Christian Robillard and Richard Villeneuve at Purpose Podcasting. This podcast has been a production of Charity Growth Academy by Canada Helps. Support for Charity Growth Academy has been generously provided by MasterCard ChangeWorks and MasterCard Impact Fund.